The Korean Mafia boss was attacked on the head and lost his memory. Everyone gave up, until his black waitress said one name. The restaurant was called Baek-do, named after the sacred mountain on the Korean peninsula. To most people walking past its elegant facade on Western Avenue in Koreatown, it looked like any other upscale Korean establishment. Sleek black exterior, minimalist signage, soft amber light spilling onto the sidewalk through floor-to-ceiling windows. But Kate Morrison knew better. After 2 years of working there, she'd learned to read the signs others missed. The way certain men in expensive suits never paid their bills, but left with respectful bows. How the owner, Cho Min-suk, could silence an entire room with a single glance. The private dining room on the 3rd floor that required 2 security clearances to access. The phone calls he took at 3 a.m. in rapid Korean, voice cold as winter steel. Baek-do wasn't just a restaurant. It was the nerve center of the Cho family's empire, one of the most powerful Korean organized crime syndicates in Los Angeles. And Kate? She was just a waitress. 26 years old, working 2 jobs to send money home to her grandmother in Atlanta, pouring soju and serving galbi to men who could make people disappear with a phone call. She kept her head down, did her work efficiently, and tried not to think too hard about the occasional bloodstain she'd find in the alley behind the kitchen, or the way certain deliveries arrived in the dead of night. But she'd also learned something else in those 2 years. Min-suk was different from what she'd expected. 28 years old, devastatingly handsome with sharp features and eyes that could cut through steel, he ran his empire with cold precision. But he also made sure his staff ate before service started, paid for his dishwasher's son's surgery without being asked, learned every employee's name, and asked about their families. The duality fascinated Kate. This man who could order someone's death over dinner, then leave a $1,000 tip for a single mother struggling with rent. Kate! His voice cut through her thoughts. She turned to find Min-suk standing in the doorway of the main dining room, impeccably dressed as always in a charcoal Tom Ford suit. Dark hair perfectly styled. But there was tension in his shoulders tonight, something wrong in the set of his jaw. Yes, Mr. Cho. She moved toward him instinctively, notepad ready even though the restaurant didn't open for another hour. There's a situation tonight. His English was flawless, carrying just a hint of an accent that made certain words sound like silk. Private party, 3rd floor, 10 guests. I need you serving. Kate's stomach tightened. She'd only been to the 3rd floor twice before, once for a meeting that ended with someone being carried out unconscious, and once for what appeared to be a negotiation involving leather briefcases and stacks of cash. Of course, Mr. Cho. What time? 8 o'clock. And Kate? His dark eyes held hers, and she felt that familiar flutter in her chest that she'd been ignoring for months. Stay alert tonight. If anything feels wrong, if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you leave immediately, understand? I understand. But she didn't, not really. Min-suk had never warned her before. Whatever was happening tonight was different, dangerous. He studied her face for a long moment, and Kate wondered what he saw. Did he notice the way her breath hitched when he stood too close? How she'd memorized the exact shade of brown in his eyes? The pathetic crush she'd developed despite knowing nothing could ever happen between them? She was black, American, working class, everything his traditional Korean family would reject. And he was a crime lord who probably had a dozen women more beautiful and suitable than her. You're a good worker, Kate. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. I appreciate your dedication to Baek-do, to my family's legacy. Then he was gone, disappearing into his office, leaving Kate standing alone with her racing heart and the growing sense that tonight would change everything. At 7:45 p.m., Kate put on her best server's uniform, a fitted black dress that hit just below the knee, crisp white apron, hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She checked her reflection in the staff bathroom mirror. Professional, forgettable, safe, exactly what she needed to be. The 3rd floor was different from the rest of Baek-do, where the main dining rooms featured warm woods and traditional Korean art. This space was modern and cold, all black marble and chrome, with windows tinted so dark that looking out at the city felt like peering into an abyss. A single long table dominated the center, set for 10 with the restaurant's finest china and crystal. Min-suk's head of security, a massive Korean man named Bae Jun-ho, was doing a final sweep of the room when Kate arrived. He nodded at her curtly. Stay near the kitchen. Serve when called. Don't speak unless spoken to. And if shooting starts, hit the floor immediately. Shooting? Kate's voice came out higher than intended. Probably won't happen. Junho's expression suggested otherwise. But this is a territorial negotiation. The Yakuza families from Little Tokyo have been pushing into our operations. Tonight we establish new boundaries, or we go to war. Kate's hands started to shake. She'd known Baekdu was involved in organized crime, but knowing abstractly and standing in a room where violence might erupt were very different things. Maybe Mr. Cho should get someone else. He specifically requested you. Junho's eyes narrowed. Said you keep your head in difficult situations, that you're trustworthy. Don't make him regret that trust. The guests began arriving at 8 sharp. Kate watched from her position near the kitchen as 10 men filed in. 5 Korean, 5 Japanese, all in expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the bulges of concealed weapons. The tension in the room was suffocating. These were predators forced into proximity, circling each other, waiting for someone to show weakness. Min-suk was the last to enter, flanked by Junho and another bodyguard. He'd changed into a different suit, midnight blue, almost black, that made him look like a young emperor holding court. Kate's breath caught despite her fear. He was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful, sharp and dangerous and impossible to look away from. Gentlemen, Min-suk's voice carried effortlessly through the space. Welcome to Baekdu. I appreciate you accepting my invitation to discuss our mutual interests in Los Angeles. Please sit. Let's eat and talk like civilized men. The dinner started cordially enough. Kate moved through the room like a ghost, pouring drinks, serving courses of Korean and Japanese fusion cuisine that Min-suk had personally designed for this meeting. But she could feel the undercurrent of violence humming beneath every polite exchange. They were negotiating territory, blocks of Little Tokyo that the Cho family wanted access to, shipment routes through the port of Los Angeles that the Yakuza controlled, protection rackets that overlapped in contested areas. You ask for much, Cho-san, said the man Kate had identified as the Yakuza boss, a thin Japanese man in his 50s named Tanaka Hiroshi, but offer little in return. Your family has grown arrogant since your father's death, perhaps too arrogant. The room went silent. Kate froze mid-pour, bottle of soju suspended over a glass. Min-suk's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air, a predator catching the scent of challenge. My father built this empire with blood and vision. Min-suk's voice was soft, deadly. I inherited both. What the Cho family offers, Tanaka-san, is the opportunity to prosper together rather than destroy each other. I'd prefer partnership, but I'm fully prepared for war. The choice is yours. Tanaka smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Perhaps we should discuss this more directly, without so many ears present. His gaze flicked to Kate meaningfully. My staff is loyal and discreet. Min-suk didn't even glance at Kate, but she felt the weight of his protection. They hear nothing, see nothing, speak nothing. This is known. Nevertheless, Tanaka stood abruptly. I require assurance of privacy for what I must say next. Send the girl away. Kate moved immediately, not waiting for Min-suk's order. She'd just reached the kitchen door when she heard Tanaka's voice rise sharply in Japanese, then Korean, then the universal language of threat, the metallic slide of guns being drawn. She spun around to see chaos erupting. Min-suk was on his feet, Junho and the other bodyguard flanking him with weapons raised. But Tanaka's men had drawn faster, and suddenly there were 5 guns pointed at Min-suk's head, while only 2 pointed back. You insult me by refusing privacy, Tanaka said coldly. You insult my family by demanding territory that belongs to us. And you insult tradition by thinking youth and ambition trump experience and power. Your father would be ashamed. My father would have killed you for drawing weapons at his table. Min-suk's voice was ice. I'm showing more restraint than he ever would. But Tanaka-san, if you think I'm unprepared for this, you've made a fatal miscalculation. He smiled then, cold and vicious and absolutely terrifying. And Kate realized he'd been expecting this, wanting this. The dinner had been a trap to draw out Tanaka's aggression, to justify what came next. The kitchen door burst open. 20 armed men flooded the 3rd floor, Min-suk's soldiers, hidden and waiting. Within seconds, Tanaka's group was surrounded, completely outgunned. The Yakuza boss's face went white with fury and fear. Lower your weapons, Min-suk commanded, and his men obeyed instantly. This is the deal, Tanaka-san. You leave Los Angeles. All operations, all territory, all influence. You have 1 month to transfer everything to the Cho family or designated neutral parties. In exchange, I let you and your men walk out of here alive tonight. I don't pursue you to Japan. I don't kill your families. I give you mercy. You'll start a war with the entire Yakuza network. I'm prepared for that war. Are you? Minsuk leaned forward slightly. Because I'm 28 years old, Tanaka-san. I have decades to fight. You have what? 5 years before you retire? 10 before you die? How much blood are you willing to spill for territory you can't hold? The math was brutal and clear. Tanaka's hand trembled slightly as he lowered his weapon. His men followed suit. The surrender was silent but absolute. 1 month, Tanaka bit out. Then Los Angeles is yours. Minsuk nodded once. Junho will escort you out. This meeting is concluded. As the Yakuza members were herded toward the exit, Kate finally remembered to breathe. Her legs felt weak. She'd just witnessed a bloodless coup, the kind of power play that would reshape the entire criminal landscape of Los Angeles. And Minsuk had orchestrated it perfectly, using dinner and false hospitality to catch his enemies off guard. When the room finally emptied, leaving only Minsuk, Junho, and Kate, Minsuk turned to her. For the first time all night, emotion cracked through his controlled facade. Relief, exhaustion, something that might have been fear. Kate, he crossed to her in 3 long strides. Are you all right? I know that was terrifying, insane, the most dangerous thing I've ever witnessed. Kate's voice shook. Yeah, Mr. Cho, I'm fine. Just peachy. Definitely not traumatized or anything. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You did well. Stayed calm. Didn't panic. That matters. Why did you want me here? The question burst out before she could stop it. You could have had any server. Why specifically request me for something this dangerous? Minsuk's dark eyes held hers, and Kate saw something there she couldn't quite name. Because I trust you. Because in 2 years you've never gossiped, never asked questions, never shown fear even when you probably should have. Because, he stopped, jaw tightening. Because I wanted someone I know would be safe, would follow instructions, would survive if things went wrong. The admission hung between them, weighted with implications Kate didn't dare examine. Before she could respond, Junho appeared in the doorway. Boss, we have a problem. Kim faction just called. They heard about the meeting. They're not happy about the Yakuza concessions. They want to talk. Tonight. Minsuk's expression hardened back into the mask of leadership. Tell them I'll meet at the warehouse in an hour. He turned back to Kate. Go home. Take tomorrow off. Paid. And Kate, thank you for everything tonight. Kate nodded, grabbing her purse from the kitchen. But as she left Baekdu, walking out into the cool Los Angeles night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just crossed some invisible line. She wasn't just an employee anymore. She'd witnessed something that made her valuable. And in Minsuk's world, valuable meant vulnerable. The next 3 days passed normally. Kate worked her shifts at Baekdu, served customers, collected tips. Minsuk was absent, not unusual after major business dealings. She told herself she wasn't disappointed. Told herself it didn't matter that he hadn't thanked her personally again. Told herself the way he'd looked at her that night didn't mean anything. On the 4th day, Minsuk still hadn't appeared. Kate started to worry. On the 5th day, when Junho arrived for lunch, looking haggard and drawn, Kate couldn't help herself. Is Mr. Cho all right? She asked quietly as she poured his tea. I haven't seen him all week. Junho's eyes flicked to her, assessing. Then surprisingly, he answered. He's handling the fallout from the Tanaka situation. There have been complications. The Kim faction is demanding concessions. Other families are testing our boundaries. It's a delicate time. But he's safe. Something shifted in Junho's expression. Surprise, maybe even approval. For now, why do you ask? Kate busied herself wiping down the already clean table. Just want to make sure my boss is okay. Can't run a restaurant without an owner, right? Right. But Junho's tone suggested he didn't believe that was her only reason. I'll tell him you asked about him. He'll appreciate it. That evening, Kate was closing up the main dining room when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you for your concern. I'm fine. Working late. MCS. Her heart did something stupid and complicated in her chest. Minsuk had her number? Had taken the time to text her personally? She stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. Good to know the boss isn't dead. Would hate to lose my job. The response came quickly. You'd find another job in an hour. Restaurants fight over servers like you. Ones who don't panic during armed standoffs. Ones who are smart, efficient, and don't ask questions they shouldn't. A pause, then another message. But yes, the not panicking thing is a bonus. Kate smiled despite herself, fingers hovering over her phone. This was dangerous. She knew that, texting her boss, the crime lord, like they were friends. But something about the normalcy of it, the casual back and forth, felt like a lifeline. Get some sleep, Mr. Cho. You can't run an empire on no rest. Is that an order from my waitress? It's concern from someone who needs you alive, so her paychecks keep clearing. I'll try. Good night, Kate. Good night, Mr. Cho. Over the next 2 weeks, the text continued. Never anything inappropriate. Min-suk was always professional, always respectful of the boundaries between them. But there was something growing in those late-night exchanges. A connection Kate couldn't quite name but couldn't deny either. He'd text her after difficult meetings. The Kim faction finally agreed to terms. Peace in our time. Maybe. She'd respond with encouragement. That's good, right? One crisis averted? In my world, Kate, one crisis averted just means another is brewing. But yes, for tonight, it's good. Sometimes he'd ask about her life. How's your grandmother? You mentioned she wasn't feeling well. And Kate would find herself opening up better. The medicine I could finally afford thanks to my raise, thank you again, is helping. She's stubborn, though, refuses to slow down. Stubbornness runs in your family, apparently. What's that supposed to mean? You work 2 jobs, send money home, never complain, and somehow still smile at customers who treat you like you're invisible. That's not determination. That's stubbornness. Or survival. Maybe both. Kate told herself it meant nothing, that Min-suk was just being a considerate employer, that the warmth spreading through her chest when his name appeared on her phone was just gratitude, not attraction, not the beginning of something that could destroy her. But she was lying to herself, and deep down, she knew it. The attack happened on a Tuesday night, 3 weeks after the Yakuza meeting. Kate was working the late shift when Junho burst through the restaurant doors, blood on his shirt, face twisted with panic. Close Baekdu, now, send everyone home, lock everything down. His voice was raw, desperate in a way Kate had never heard. Boss's orders. Fear spiked through Kate's chest. What happened? Where's Mr. Cho? Hospital, UCLA Medical. He's alive, but... Junho's voice cracked. Just close the restaurant. I have to get back to him. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Kate sent the staff home, locked up Baekdu with shaking hands, then sat in her car in the parking lot, trying to decide what to do. She shouldn't go to the hospital. She had no right. She was just an employee. Just someone he texted occasionally, nothing more. But her hands were already turning the ignition, her car already pulling onto Western Avenue toward UCLA. The ICU waiting room was full of dangerous-looking Korean men in expensive suits, all of them silent and tense. Kate recognized several of Min-suk's lieutenants, his inner circle. They looked at her with surprise when she entered. A black woman in a server's uniform, clearly out of place in this world of organized crime and family loyalty. You shouldn't be here, one of them said flatly. This is family business. I just want to know if he's okay. Kate's voice came out smaller than she intended. I work at Baekdu. Mr. Cho is my boss. I need to know. Kate. Junho appeared from a hallway, still covered in blood. Min-suk's blood, Kate realized with horror. Come with me. He led her to a small private waiting area away from the others. Up close, she could see the devastation in his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly. This man who'd held a gun to Yakuza members, without flinching, was barely holding himself together. What happened? Kate whispered. Ambush. The Kim faction. They weren't satisfied with the treaty terms. Decided to make a statement. Junho's jaw clenched. Hit our convoy on the way back from a meeting in Monterey Park. 4 of our men are dead. 3 more critical. And Min-suk... He stopped, overcome. Kate reached out instinctively, touching his arm. Tell me, please. Took a bullet to protect me. Stupid, heroic bastard threw himself in front of me when the shooting started. Bullet grazed his skull. Doctors say he's lucky to be alive, but there's swelling on the brain. They had to relieve the pressure surgically. He's in a coma. They don't know when or if he'll wake up. The world tilted. Kate grabbed the edge of a chair to steady herself. He's going to be okay, though. The doctor said... They said they don't know. Junho's voice broke completely. He's the only family I have left, Kate. Minsuk saved me from the streets when I was 16, gave me purpose, became my brother in everything but blood. If he doesn't wake up, if he dies, he won't, Kate heard herself say, with a certainty she didn't feel. He's too stubborn to die. You said so yourself. He took a bullet for you. That's not someone who gives up easily. Junho looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her. He cares about you. I don't know if he's told you that. Maybe doesn't even know it himself. But the way he talks about you, asks about you, you matter to him, Kate, more than an employee should. The admission hung between them, confirming what Kate had suspected but never dared believe. I care about him too, she heard herself whisper. I know I shouldn't. I know it's impossible. But I do. Then sit with me. Junho gestured to the chairs. Wait with me for him to wake up, because I can't do this alone, and somehow I think you're the only other person who loves him the way I do. So Kate stayed. Through the night, through the next day, calling in sick to her other job, surviving on hospital vending machine coffee and terror. Doctors came and went with updates. Stable condition, no change, still unconscious. Minsuk's body was healing, they said. The swelling was going down, but he wasn't waking up. On the third day, Kate finally talked her way past security to see him. The sight of Minsuk in that hospital bed nearly broke her. This man who'd commanded rooms full of dangerous criminals, who'd stared down Yakuza bosses without flinching, looked small and vulnerable hooked up to machines, face pale, eyes closed. A bandage covered half his head where they'd operated. Hey, Mr. Cho, Kate whispered, pulling a chair close to his bed. It's Kate, from Baekdu, your favorite waitress. She tried to smile. Well, technically, probably your only waitress who witnessed you stage a coup and didn't run screaming. So I win by default. Nothing. No response, no flicker of awareness. Just the steady beep of monitors. You need to wake up, Kate continued, voice breaking. Because Junho is falling apart without you? Because your empire needs leadership? Because... She reached out, taking his hand carefully. Because I really want to know how our story ends. And I can't do that if you don't wake up. She sat with him for hours talking about nothing and everything. About Baekdu, about the customers, about her grandmother's latest phone call. She told him stories from her childhood in Atlanta, about her dreams of opening her own restaurant someday. Confessed things she'd never told anyone. Her fears, her loneliness, how she'd come to Los Angeles chasing a dream that hadn't materialized, but somehow found something better in the process. I think I'm falling for you, she finally admitted into the silence, which is stupid and impossible and completely inappropriate. You're my boss. You're a crime lord. You're Korean and I'm black and we're from totally different worlds. But Minsuk. She squeezed his hand gently. When you look at me, I feel seen. When you text me late at night, I feel valued. You make me laugh and think and want things I know I shouldn't want. So you need to wake up so I can figure out if this is real or just a stupid crush on someone who showed me basic human kindness. But Minsuk didn't wake up. Days turned into a week. The doctors started using words like uncertain prognosis and potential complications. Junho organized the business, holding the empire together through sheer force of will while their leader lay unconscious. And Kate divided her time between Baekdu and the hospital, unable to abandon either. On day 10, everything changed. Kate arrived at the hospital for her evening visit to find chaos. Doctors rushing into Minsuk's room, machines beeping urgently. She tried to follow but was pushed back by security. What's happening? She demanded. He woke up, Junho said, appearing beside her. His face was a complicated mix of relief and something else. Something that looked like dread. But Kate, something's wrong. They brought Kate and Junho in 20 minutes later. Minsuk was sitting up slightly, alert and alive, but his eyes when they landed on Junho were completely blank. Who are you? His voice was rough from disuse. Where am I? What happened? The neurologist, Dr. Chen, stepped forward. Mr. Cho, I'm afraid you've experienced retrograde amnesia as a result of your head trauma. You've lost approximately 3 years of memory. You remember your father's death, taking over the family business, but nothing after that. No recent events, no people you've met in the last few years. 3 years, Minsuk's voice rose slightly, panic edging in. I don't remember. Junho? He looked at the massive security chief with confusion. You look older. What happened to you? Time happened, boss. Junho's voice was thick. 3 years of it that you can't remember. Minsuk's eyes swept the room, landing on Kate. She felt the impact of his gaze, but this time there was no recognition, no warmth, just the assessment of a stranger evaluating a potential threat. Who's she? The words hit like a physical blow. Kate felt something inside her crack and splinter. He didn't know her, didn't remember their texts, their conversations, the way he'd protected her during the Yakuza meeting. She was nothing to him again. Less than nothing. A stranger. Just someone from the restaurant, Junho said quietly. She was concerned about you. Minsuk nodded absently, already dismissing her. Thank you for your concern. You can go now. Kate fled, made it to the parking garage before the tears came. Huge, racking sobs that left her gasping for air. She'd known it was impossible, known there could never be anything real between them. But to have him look at her like she was nothing, like those moments they'd shared had never existed. She sat in her car for an hour, trying to pull herself together. Then she drove home, called in sick to both jobs, and spent the next 2 days in bed staring at their old text messages, torturing herself with evidence of something that no longer existed, at least not in Minsuk's mind. On the third day, Junho showed up at her apartment. Kate answered the door in sweatpants and one of her grandmother's old hoodies, eyes red from crying. You look terrible, Junho said bluntly. Thanks. That's exactly what a girl wants to hear. Kate moved to close the door, but he blocked it with his foot. I need your help. With what? Minsuk doesn't even know who I am anymore. Exactly, which is why I need you. Junho's expression was desperate. Kate, he's not himself. The doctors say the physical trauma is healing, but the memory loss is extensive. 3 years, completely gone. He doesn't remember key deals, important alliances, people he trusted. Worse, he doesn't remember who he'd become in those years. Kate shook her head. I don't understand what you want from me. Minsuk 3 years ago was different, harder, colder. His father had just died, and he was drowning in rage and grief. He made decisions based on violence, not strategy. Burned bridges, created enemies. Junho leaned against her doorframe. The Minsuk you know, the one who built alliances, who showed mercy to Tanaka, who funded charity programs and tried to go legitimate. That's who he became over the last 3 years. But now, he's reverted. He's planning retaliation against the Kim faction. Not strategic retaliation. Wholesale slaughter. He wants to start a war that will destroy everything he built. How am I supposed to stop that? He doesn't even remember me. Maybe that's the point. Maybe you're the key to bringing those memories back. Junho pulled out his phone, showing Kate photos of Minsuk from the past week. He looked different, harder, meaner, the softness she'd glimpsed completely gone. The doctors say specific triggers can sometimes restore memory. A smell, a taste, a word, something that creates a strong neural pathway back to the lost memories. And you think I'm that trigger? I think you're the only person who became important to him in those 3 lost years who wasn't tied to business or violence. You represent something different, something he built outside the empire. If anything can reach the man he became, it's you. Kate wanted to refuse, wanted to protect her already broken heart from further damage. But she looked at those photos of Minsuk, at the coldness in his eyes, and remembered the man who'd texted her goodnight, who'd asked about her grandmother, who'd made her feel seen. What do you need me to do? The plan was simple in theory, complicated in execution. Kate would return to work at Bagdu. Minsuk had demanded the restaurant reopen, business as usual, despite still recovering. She would be his server, be around him, try to trigger memories through familiar interactions. Junho had briefed her on everything. Minsuk's routines, his preferences, the details of their text conversations that Minsuk no longer remembered. Be yourself, Junho advised. Don't push, don't force it. Just be the person he'd text at 2 a.m. when he couldn't sleep. Be Kate. Easier said than done when the man in question looked at her like a stranger. Kate's first shift back was excruciating. Minsuk was at his usual table in the corner, reviewing documents with his lieutenants. He glanced up when she approached to take orders, and Kate saw absolutely no recognition in his eyes. Just cool professional assessment. Green tea, he ordered curtly, and the lunch special. Of course, Mr. Cho. Kate kept her voice steady, professional. gave no indication that they'd ever been anything more than employer and employee. But her hands shook slightly as she poured his tea, and she saw him notice, his eyes narrowing. "Are you nervous?" The question was sharp, assessing. "Are you afraid of me?" Kate met his gaze steadily. "Should I be?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe interest. "Most people are." "I'm not most people, Mr. Cho." She set the tea down carefully. "Your lunch will be ready shortly." She walked away, feeling his eyes on her back, that same intensity she remembered. But now it felt dangerous rather than warm. This Min-suk was calculating, suspicious, looking for threats and weaknesses. The man who texted her sweet nothing was buried under 3 years of missing memories, replaced by someone harsher and less forgiving. Over the next week, Kate tried everything. She mentioned details from their texts, her grandmother's health, the raise he'd given her. Referenced the Yakuza meeting, tried to recreate moments they'd shared. But Min-suk showed zero recognition. He was polite, professional, nothing more. And increasingly, he was descending into the violence Junho had warned about. "He's planning the Kim hit for Friday," Junho told Kate during a rushed conversation in the kitchen. "Full assault. He wants to send a message. Kate, if this happens, if he starts this war..." He didn't need to finish. The empire Min-suk had carefully built would collapse in blood and chaos. "There has to be something." Kate paced frantically. "Some trigger we haven't tried. Did the doctors mention anything specific?" "They said trauma memories are often stored differently, connected to strong emotions. Fear, love, grief." Junho looked at her meaningfully. "Kate, what was the strongest emotion Min-suk felt in those 3 lost years?" Kate's mind raced through their interactions. The texts, the late-night conversations, the way he'd looked at her before the attack. "Love," she whispered, "or the beginning of it. He was starting to love me." Then that's what we need to trigger. Not business memories, not strategic calculations. Love. How? He doesn't remember me, doesn't feel anything for me. I'm just a waitress he barely tolerates. Then make him feel something new. Make him see what he saw before. Kate, Junho grabbed her shoulders gently. "I know this is asking a lot. I know your heart is already broken. But if you can reach him, if you can make him feel even a fraction of what he felt before, it might be enough to break through the amnesia. And if it doesn't work, then we lose him. The man we knew dies, and this harder version takes over permanently. The Kim hit happens, war starts, and everything he built becomes ashes." Kate spent that night planning. She couldn't just tell Min-suk they'd been growing close. He'd dismiss it as manipulation. She needed to show him somehow, make him feel the connection without forcing it. But how did you make someone fall for you twice? How did you recreate organic moments that had grown over months? The answer came from an unexpected source, her grandmother. Kate had called her that night, desperate for advice, and ended up sobbing out the entire story. The crime lord boss, the growing feelings, the amnesia, the impossible situation. "Baby girl," her grandmother said in that slow Georgia drawl Kate loved, "you're thinking about this all wrong. You're trying to force memories that don't exist anymore. Instead, you need to create new ones. Show him who you are now, who he could be now. If what you had was real, it'll grow again. You can't make a man remember love, but you can make him fall again." "Grandma, I don't know how to do that." "You do. You already did it once without trying. Just be yourself, honey. The rest will follow." The next day, Kate came to work with a new plan. Stop trying to trigger the past and start building a present. She served Min-suk his usual green tea, but this time she included a small note tucked under the saucer. Simple. Nothing pushy. "You look tired. Make sure you're sleeping enough." She saw him find it, read it, his expression flickering with confusion. But he didn't throw it away. When she came to clear his table later, she noticed he tucked the note into his pocket. The next day, another note. "The bulgogi is particularly good today. Chef made it special. Try it with extra SSAM." And the day after. "Bad meeting? Your jaw does that thing when you're stressed. Deep breaths help. Trust me." Min-suk started looking for the notes. Kate saw him check under his tea saucer expectantly, saw the slight disappointment when occasionally she didn't leave one. He never acknowledged them directly, but she caught him rereading them sometimes, a small crease between his brows like he was trying to solve a puzzle. On day 5, he stopped her as she delivered his lunch. Why do you do this? The notes? Kate met his eyes steadily. Because you look like someone who could use a reminder that someone cares if you're okay, even if it's just your waitress. I'm your boss, and he gestured vaguely at himself. What I am, what I do. People don't care if I'm okay. They care if I'm useful or dangerous. Maybe that's why someone should care just because. Kate set his plate down carefully. Everyone deserves to be seen as human, Mr. Cho, even crime lords. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, vulnerability, a crack in the armor. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? She echoed her earlier question, but this time with a slight smile. Yes, everyone else is. Then I guess I'm not everyone else. Kate turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Wait, what's your name? Your actual name, not just Kate? Catherine Morrison, but everyone calls me Kate, have for as long as I can remember. Catherine. He said it slowly, like tasting the syllables. It suits you. Strong. Classic. Thanks, I think. It's a compliment. For the first time since waking from the coma, something like a real smile touched his lips. Not the cold smirk she'd seen him use with his lieutenants, but something genuine and warm. Thank you. For the notes. For caring, I suppose. Kate's heart stuttered. For just a moment, she saw a glimpse of the man she'd known, the one who'd texted her late at night, who'd worried about her grandmother, who'd made her feel valued. You're welcome, Mr. Cho. Min Suk. The correction was quiet but firm. When it's just you and me, call me Min Suk. Min Suk, Kate repeated, and watched his eyes widen slightly at the sound of his name in her voice. Did he feel it too? That sense of familiarity, of rightness. I don't understand, he said slowly. Why you feel so familiar? Why when you say my name it sounds like I should remember something important. Do we know each other from before? Kate's breath caught. This was it, the moment to tell him everything. But Junho's advice echoed. Don't force it. Let him discover it naturally. We've worked together for 2 years, she said carefully. So in a way, yes. You know me. I know you. It feels like more than that. His eyes searched her face, desperate for answers she couldn't give. When I look at you, I feel something. I don't know what. But Catherine Morrison, you're not just my waitress, are you? What do you think I am? I think you're someone I should remember but can't, and it's driving me insane. That night, Kate found Min Suk still at Baekdu long after closing, sitting alone in the dark dining room with a bottle of soju and what looked like 3 years of security footage pulled up on his laptop. She should have left him alone, should have gone home. Instead, she found herself crossing the empty space to sit across from him. Trying to remember? She asked softly. Trying to understand who I was, who I became. He gestured at the screen, showing footage of himself from various dates over the past 3 years. Junho says I changed, became softer, more strategic, started building alliances instead of crushing enemies. But I look at this man on screen, and I don't recognize him, don't understand what made him different. Kate watched the footage with him, saw Min Suk greeting deaf community leaders at a charity event, saw him negotiating peacefully with rival factions, saw him laughing, actually laughing, with his staff at a Baekdu anniversary party. He looks happy, she observed, like he found something worth fighting for besides power. What? What did I find? I think that's something you need to discover for yourself. Kate stood to leave, but Min Suk's hand shot out, catching her wrist gently. Stay, please. I don't want to be alone with ghosts of a man I don't remember. So Kate stayed. They sat in the dark restaurant, passing the soju bottle back and forth, talking about everything and nothing. Min Suk told her about his childhood in Seoul, his father's impossible expectations, the weight of legacy. Kate shared stories about Atlanta, her grandmother's wisdom, her dreams of culinary school she'd given up for financial reality. You should go back to school, Min Suk said. I could arrange it, pay your tuition. I don't want charity. It wouldn't be charity. It would be investment. You're talented, Catherine. I can see it in how you move through this space, how you talk about food. You belong in a kitchen creating, not just serving. The use of her full name sent warmth through her chest. Why do you call me that? Catherine instead of Kate. Because Catherine sounds like someone worth knowing. Kate sounds like someone you take for granted. His eyes met hers in the darkness. And I have this feeling, I can't explain it, that taking you for granted would be the biggest mistake of my life. Kate's breath caught. He was so close to remembering. She could see it in his eyes, in the way he leaned toward her unconsciously. Min Suk, I keep having dreams, he admitted. Since I woke up. Dreams of someone whose face I can't quite see. Someone who makes me feel safe. Someone I'm terrified of losing. I thought they were just fragments of my broken brain trying to make sense of trauma. But tonight, sitting here with you, he reached up, cupping her cheek gently. I think maybe I was dreaming of you. Kate's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break her ribs. That's impossible. You didn't know me before. Not really. Then why does touching you feel like coming home? His thumb brushed across her lips, and Kate couldn't help the small gasp that escaped. Why does every cell in my body scream that you're mine, and I'm yours, and I'm missing something crucial? Min Suk, you have to remember on your own. I can't. He kissed her, softly at first, questioning, then deeper as Kate melted into him. It felt exactly like their first kiss had. Electric and perfect, and absolutely right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Min Suk pressed his forehead to hers. Tell me I'm not insane. Tell me you feel this too. You're not insane, Kate whispered. I feel it. I felt it for months. Then help me understand. Please, Catherine. Help me remember who I was. Who we were. Kate pulled back, looking into his desperate eyes. We weren't anything. Not officially. You were my boss. I was your employee. But there was something growing. Something that scared both of us because it didn't make sense. You're a crime lord. I'm a waitress. You're Korean. I'm black. We're from completely different worlds. And yet here we are, again. Whatever happened before, it's happening now. I can feel it. The doctors say you might never remember, that 3 years could be gone forever. So you need to decide, Min Suk. Do you want to rebuild what we were starting to have, or do you want to walk away while you still can? I don't want to walk away. His hands framed her face. I don't care if I never remember. I want to build something new with you, Catherine Morrison. Starting right now. They started dating that week. If you could call late-night dinners at Baekdu after closing and stolen moments between his business meetings dating. Min Suk was intense in his pursuit, making up for lost time he couldn't remember. He sent flowers to her apartment, texted her throughout the day, showed up at her other job just to walk her to her car. You're being reckless, Junho warned. The Kim faction is still planning retaliation. Dating Kate makes her a bigger target. Then we'll protect her, Min Suk said simply. I'm not giving her up, Junho. Not again. Again? Boss, you don't remember. I don't need to remember to know she's important. Look at her. Min Suk gestured to where Kate was laughing with the kitchen staff, completely at ease. She fits here, with us, with me. My brain might not remember, but my soul does. But the Kim situation was deteriorating. Min Suk's amnesia had created a power vacuum, and various factions were testing boundaries. The planned assault was still scheduled for Friday, 3 days away. And despite Junho's protests, Min Suk was committed to violence. They tried to kill me, he said coldly during a meeting Kate wasn't supposed to overhear. They need to understand the cost of that failure. The man you were would have found another way, Junho argued. Negotiation, alliance, strategic pressure instead of open war. I'm not that man anymore. Kate's heart sank. He was right. The gentle parts of Min Suk's personality, the mercy and strategic thinking he'd developed over 3 lost years, were gone. This version was harder, crueler. And if he went through with the Kim assault, he'd destroy not just them, but everything he'd built. She had to do something. Had to find a way to trigger his memories before Friday. But how? Every attempt had failed. Every conversation, every familiar situation, nothing broke through the wall in his mind. That night, unable to sleep, Kate pulled out her phone and scrolled through their old texts. Hundreds of messages, months of late-night conversations, all erased from his memory. She read through them chronologically, looking for patterns, for clues to what had made Min Suk change from the hard man he'd been to the softer version she'd known. And there it was. One text, sent 3 months after they'd started talking. My sister's birthday today. Would have been 12. Still can't believe she's gone. Sometimes I forget, reach for my phone to text her, then remember. Does grief ever get easier? Kate remembered her response. It doesn't get easier, but it gets different, less sharp, more like an ache than a stab. Your sister would want you to be happy, Minsuk, to live, not just survive. His reply had been simple. Thank you, for understanding, for not telling me to move on or get over it. You're the only person who's let me sit with the pain. That had been the turning point, when he'd started really opening up, when their relationship had deepened beyond professional courtesy. Ji-won, his dead sister. She was the key, not to his feelings for Kate, but to the man he'd become. The grief had softened him, made him value life and connection, made him want to build instead of destroy. But he didn't remember Ji-won had existed. The amnesia had taken not just 3 years, but the emotional processing he'd done during that time. He'd lost his sister twice, once to death, once to forgotten grief. Kate knew what she had to do, and it terrified her. The next morning, Kate arrived at Baekdu to find Minsuk in his office, reviewing attack plans for the Kim assault. Her stomach churned at the coldness in his eyes, the casual way he discussed violence. We need to talk, she said without preamble, closing the door behind her. Minsuk looked up, surprise flickering across his face. Catherine, I didn't expect you until lunch service. This can't wait. Kate took a deep breath, steeling herself. I know how to help you remember. He stood immediately, moving around his desk toward her. How? The doctors said, the doctors don't know you like I do. Like you did before. Kate pulled up photos on her phone, pictures of a young girl that Jun-ho had given her. Korean, maybe 9 years old, bright smile, hands forming signs. Do you recognize her? Minsuk stared at the photos, his face going pale. Should I? Her name was Cho Ji-won, your sister. She died 3 years ago, right at the edge of your memory loss. You loved her more than anything in the world. I don't have a sister? But his voice cracked. His hands shook as he took Kate's phone, zooming in on the girl's face. I would remember. I would know. You do know. Somewhere deep down. Minsuk, Ji-won was deaf. You learned sign language for her, spent years protecting her, advocating for her, making sure the world saw her as whole. When she died, it nearly destroyed you. But it also changed you, made you gentler, made you value life differently, made you the man who would later text me late at night about grief and loss and healing. Tears were streaming down Minsuk's face, though Kate didn't think he realized it. Stop. I don't want to hear this. You need to hear it, because the assault you're planning, the violence you want to unleash, Ji-won would hate it. She believed in building, not destroying, in mercy, not revenge. You spent the last 3 years trying to honor her memory by becoming better. And now you're throwing that away because you can't remember why it mattered. You're lying. But he couldn't look away from the photos. This is manipulation. You're trying to... Ji-won, Kate said simply. The name. Say her name, Minsuk. Cho Ji-won. Your baby sister. Say it. Cho Ji-won. He whispered it like a prayer. Cho Ji-won. Cho Ji... The change was instantaneous and devastating. Minsuk's eyes went wide, pupils dilating, as color drained from his face completely. He stumbled backward, catching himself on his desk, one hand flying to his head where the surgical scar was. Kate watched in horror as he collapsed to his knees, a guttural sound tearing from his throat. Minsuk! She dropped beside him, but he couldn't hear her. He was somewhere else, lost in a flood of returning memories. She saw his lips moving, forming words. Ji-won, sorry. Couldn't save you, my fault. Ji-won, Ji-won. It lasted 5 minutes. 5 eternal minutes where Kate held him while he shook and cried and remembered 3 years of life all at once. The doctors had warned this could happen, that sudden memory restoration could be traumatic, but knowing it intellectually and witnessing it were different things. Finally, gradually, Minsuk's breathing steadied. His death grip on Kate's hand loosened. When he looked up at her, his eyes were different, clear, aware, devastated but whole. Catherine, he whispered, and the way he said her name, with recognition, with history, with love, told Kate everything. He remembered. Welcome back, she said softly, tears streaming down her own face. Ji-won is dead. The words were hollow. I watched her die. I held her hand and watched the light leave her eyes. and I couldn't do anything. I failed her. You didn't fail her. You loved her. You gave her the best life possible, and she loved you back with everything she had. I forgot her. The guilt in his voice was crushing. The amnesia, I forgot my own sister existed. What kind of brother? The kind who survived a bullet to the head, Kate interrupted firmly. The kind whose brain had to sacrifice some memories to keep him alive. Ji-won wouldn't blame you. She'd just be glad you're still here. Min-suk looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her. You gave her back to me. You knew saying her name would trigger everything, and you did it anyway, even though you knew how painful it would be. I had to, because the man who loved Ji-won wouldn't order the Kim massacre. He'd find another way, a better way. You're right. Min-suk stood slowly, pulling Kate up with him. God, Catherine, I remember everything now. Every text, every conversation, the Yakuza meeting, the night I kissed you, falling for you. His voice broke. I remember loving you. Do you still? Kate's voice was small, vulnerable. Now that you remember being scared of it, remember all the reasons it shouldn't work? I love you more. He pulled her close, cradling her face gently. Because I remember choosing you despite those reasons. I remember deciding you were worth any risk, any complication. And Catherine, I'd choose you again. Right now, without hesitation. Even though I broke your heart by making you remember Ji-won's death, especially because of that, you gave me the one thing I needed most, my sister back. Even if only in memory. Even though it hurt. You knew the cost and paid it anyway. His thumb brushed away her tears. How could I not love someone that brave? Kate kissed him then, pouring 3 weeks of fear and loneliness and desperate hope into it. And when they broke apart, she saw the man she'd fallen for looking back at her. Complex and dangerous and capable of terrible things. Yes, but also gentle and grieving and trying so hard to be better. The Kim assault, she said. You're canceling it? I'm negotiating instead, like I should have done from the beginning, before the amnesia made me forget why violence should be the last resort. He rested his forehead against hers. Ji-won hated violence, hated what the family business made me become. I spent 3 years trying to make her proud by finding other ways. I'm not throwing that away now. The negotiation with the Kim faction happened 3 days later. Min-suk brought Kate with him, not as his waitress, but as his partner. You brought me back from the edge, he told her. You deserve to see what that means. The meeting was tense. The Kim leadership expected war, came prepared for violence. Instead, Min-suk offered them a deal. Shared territory, split profits, alliance against external threats. My father would have destroyed you for touching me, he said calmly. But I'm not my father. I'm the man my sister wanted me to be. Someone who builds rather than destroys. The Kim boss, a hard-faced man named Kim Tae-yang, studied Min-suk suspiciously. What changed? 2 weeks ago you wanted our heads. Now you want partnership? I remembered what I was fighting for, and what I'd become. Min-suk glanced at Kate. Someone reminded me that power means nothing if you're alone at the top. That legacy is measured in what you build, not what you destroy. My sister taught me that. I forgot for a while, but I remember now. Kim Tae-yang followed his gaze to Kate, understanding dawning. The waitress. We heard rumors. You love her. Yes. Love makes you weak. Love makes me human. Min-suk leaned forward. Which is exactly what my organization needs. My father built an empire on fear. I'm building one on respect and mutual benefit. Join me or fight me. But know that if we fight, both our families bleed. If we partner, we prosper. Simple math. The deal was struck. Not immediately. It took hours of negotiation, compromise, careful boundary setting. But by the end of the night, peace had been established. Not perfect peace, not total trust, but a framework for coexistence. Driving home Kate's hand in his, Min-suk said quietly, I couldn't have done that before you. Sure you could have. You were already becoming this person. I just reminded you who you were. No. Catherine, listen to me. He pulled over, needing her to understand. The amnesia stripped away 3 years of growth, made me the man I was right after Ji-won died. Angry, grieving, destructive. But you didn't just give me back my memories. You gave me a reason to be better even without them. Those weeks when I didn't remember you, I still fell for you. Still wanted to be someone worthy of your respect. You changed me twice. Once slowly over 3 years. Once in 3 weeks. That's not just being a reminder. That's being the catalyst. Kate's eyes filled with tears. I was so scared I'd lost you, that the man I loved was gone forever. You'll never lose me. Even if I forget everything again. Even if another bullet scrambles my brain, my soul knows you, recognizes you, choose you. He kissed her softly. Catherine Morrison, I love you. Past, present, future. Memory or no memory. You're mine and I'm yours. That's not negotiable. Then I guess I should make this official. Kate took a breath. Cho Min-suk, I love you too. Despite your criminal empire and your dangerous life, and the fact that you scare the hell out of me sometimes. I love you. Good. He grinned, that boyish expression she loved. Because I'm not letting you go. Ever. Fair warning. 3 months later, Min-suk asked Kate to marry him, not in some grand public gesture, but in the Baekdu kitchen after closing, surrounded by the staff who'd become family. He got down on one knee in his apron, hands covered in flour from helping prep tomorrow's specials, and signed as he spoke, Catherine Morrison, you saved my life twice. Once by reminding me who I wanted to be. Once by giving me back the memories I needed to become that person. You taught me that love isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing I can build. My sister would have adored you. I know I do. Marry me. Not because it makes sense or because it's practical, but because I can't imagine my future without you in it. Kate was crying, laughing, nodding before he'd even finished. Yes, you ridiculous, dramatic man. Yes. The ring was perfect, a black diamond surrounded by smaller white ones, striking and unique, and so perfectly them. As he slid it onto her finger, Kate thought about how far they'd come, from employer and employee to this, from him not knowing who she was to him knowing exactly who she was and loving her anyway. The wedding happened 3 months later, small, intimate, blending Korean and American traditions. Min-suk's family came from Seoul, disapproving at first of his Black American bride, but gradually won over by Kate's intelligence, strength, and obvious love for their son. Kate's grandmother flew in from Atlanta and immediately adopted Min-suk as her own grandson, threatening him with bodily harm if he ever hurt my Katie. I like her, Min-suk whispered to Kate during the reception. She's terrifying. Reminds me of Ji-won. And speaking of Ji-won, Min-suk had commissioned a special memorial at the wedding, a gorgeous flower installation with a photo of his sister at the center, surrounded by candles and messages of love. During the reception, he and Kate visited it together, signing a blessing in ASL that both of them had learned. Thank you for changing your brother, Kate signed, for making him someone who could love like this. I wish I'd known you. Min-suk's eyes filled with tears as he added, she would have loved you, would have said you're too good for me. She'd be right. He took Kate's hand, but she'd also be happy that I found someone who sees me, all of me, and loves me anyway. That's all she ever wanted for me. 1 year after the wedding, Kate stood in the kitchen of her new restaurant. Not Baekdu, but something entirely hers. A fusion place that blended Korean and Southern American cuisines, funded by Min-suk but designed and operated entirely by Kate. She'd gone back to culinary school, gotten her degree, built something from the ground up. The restaurant was called Ji-won's Table, a tribute to the sister Kate had never met but who'd changed her life anyway. Half the staff were deaf, part of Kate's mission to create truly inclusive spaces. The other half were working-class kids like she'd been, given opportunities they'd never expected. Min-suk walked in during the dinner rush, and Kate's heart still did that stupid flutter thing when she saw him. He'd continued transitioning the family business toward legitimacy, slowly, carefully, but steadily. Still dangerous, still powerful, but building more than destroying. How's my favorite chef? He asked, stealing a kiss over the pass. Busy, happy, grateful. Kate gestured at the full dining room. We're booked solid for the next month. Can you believe it? I can. His eyes were soft with pride. You're brilliant, Catherine. You built something beautiful. We built something beautiful. She took his hand. You, me, all of this. It's ours. That night after service ended and staff left, they sat together in the empty restaurant, just like they'd done that night in Baekdu, sharing soju and talking about everything. But this time was different. This time they were building something together, a life, a legacy, a future. Do you ever think about that night, Kate asked, when I came to you with Jiwon's pictures? Every day, you took a massive risk. Could have broken me completely instead of fixing me. But I knew, somehow I knew her name was the key. Kate leaned her head on his shoulder. It's like Jiwon brought us together. Like she wanted you to find someone who'd love you the way she did. Completely, fiercely, without conditions. I miss her, Minsuk admitted. Still. Always. But Catherine, loving you doesn't mean I loved her less. It means I'm honoring what she taught me. That life is for living, not just surviving. That love is worth the risk. That being soft doesn't mean being weak. She'd be proud of you, of us. Kate turned to face him. We're building exactly what she would have wanted. A world where people like her are celebrated, not hidden. Where love crosses boundaries. Where power is used to protect, not destroy. I have something for you. Minsuk pulled out a small box. Inside was a delicate necklace. A pendant with Jiwon's name in Korean and ASL hand shapes forming sister. Minsuk. Jiwon never got to be an ajumma, an aunt. But if she had, she would have wanted to be part of our children's lives. So I thought, when we have kids someday, they'll never meet her. But they can know about her, carry her with them. His voice was thick with emotion. You gave her back to me. I want to give her to our future. Kate was crying now, clutching the necklace. It's perfect. She's perfect. You're perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress who got incredibly lucky that you saw potential instead of just problems. He fastened the necklace around her throat. But I'm trying, every day, trying to be the man Jiwon believed I could be. The man you deserve. You already are that man. Have been since the night you looked at me with no memory and still chose to fall for me again. 5 years later, Kate stood in that same restaurant, holding their daughter, 3 years old, named Jiwon, after the aunt she'd never meet, already learning sign language alongside English and Korean. Minsuk had fully legitimized the family business, transforming it into a network of restaurants, real estate, and community investment. He sat on charity boards, funded deaf education programs, used his influence to build rather than break. The Cho family empire was still powerful, still commanded respect, but now it was known for opportunity rather than fear, for partnership rather than domination. Minsuk had become exactly what his sister had wanted, a man who wielded power with mercy, who led with strength tempered by compassion. What are you thinking about? Minsuk asked, sliding an arm around Kate's waist as they watched their daughter play with building blocks. About how I almost lost you, how close you came to becoming someone else entirely. But you didn't lose me. You said one name, Jiwon, and brought me back. That's magic, Catherine. That's love, Kate corrected. Love is knowing which name will save someone, which truth will heal them, which risk is worth taking. Then I'm the luckiest man alive, because you love me enough to risk breaking me to make me whole. Their daughter looked up then, signing Appa, Daddy, and reaching for Minsuk. He scooped her up, and Kate's heart swelled watching them together. This dangerous man holding their tiny daughter like she was made of spun glass, signing stories to her in the language his first Jiwon had taught him. Jiwon would love this, Kate said softly. Love her. Love what we built. She does love it. I feel her sometimes, you know? In the quiet moments, like she's watching, smiling, maybe even laughing at how dramatically complicated our love story had to be. It was pretty dramatic. Crime boss loses memory, waitress saves him by saying his dead sister's name. They fall in love twice. Sounds like a drama, a really ridiculous one. Our drama, Kate corrected. Our ridiculous, beautiful, impossible story. Minsuk kissed her softly, their daughter giggling between them. Best story I've ever lived. Even the parts I forgot, especially those, because they let me fall for you twice. And Catherine, his eyes held hers, dark and intense, and full of the love she'd fought so hard to protect. I'd lose my memory 1,000 times if it meant finding my way back to you every time. Let's not test that theory, Kate said dryly. Once was traumatic enough. Fair, but my point stands. Memory or no memory, past or present, I'd always find you. Always choose you. You're written into my soul, not just my brain. Kate thought about that night in the hospital, watching Minsuk lie unconscious, wondering if she'd lost him forever. Thought about the desperate plan to trigger his memories. Thought about the moment she'd whispered Ji-won's name and watched him crack open with returning life. It had been terrifying and necessary and the bravest thing she'd ever done. But standing here now, surrounded by the life they'd built from broken pieces and recovered memories, Kate knew it had been worth it. Every tear, every moment of doubt, every risk. Worth it for this, for him, for them. I love you, Cho Min-suk. Every version of you. The one who remembered me, the one who forgot, the one who fell for me twice. All of you. And I love you, Catherine Morrison Cho. The woman who gave me back my memories, my sister, my humanity. The woman who saved me in every way a person can be saved. They kissed as their daughter applauded, as if she understood the significance of her parents' love story. And maybe she did, on some level. Maybe she could feel the weight of all the things that had almost torn them apart, but ultimately brought them together. The amnesia, the grief, the impossible circumstances, one name. That's all it had taken to change everything, to restore 3 lost years, to save a man from becoming someone he'd spent years trying not to be. Ji-won, a sister's name, a key that unlocked memories and futures alike. Kate had said the name knowing it would hurt Min-suk, knowing it might break him, but she'd also known something more important, that remembering Ji-won would remind him why mercy mattered, why love was worth protecting, why building was better than destroying. She'd been right. And in being right, in being brave enough to speak one name that contained everything, Kate had saved not just Min-suk, but everyone connected to him. Had prevented a war, had restored a man to himself, had built a future from recovered memories and new love. That night, after their daughter was asleep, Min-suk and Kate sat on their balcony overlooking the city. Los Angeles sprawled below them, lights twinkling like promises, full of possibility and danger in life. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't said her name?" Min-suk asked quietly. "If you'd let me stay in the amnesia, let me become that harder version of myself?" "Every day, but I couldn't, because I knew who you really were. Knew that the man who'd texted me late at night about grief, who'd learned sign language for his sister, who'd chosen mercy over violence, that man was still in there, just buried, waiting for someone to call him home. Ji-won called me home. Through you." Min-suk pulled Kate close. "You're my angel, Catherine. My miracle. The person who loved me enough to hurt me so I could heal. That's what love is sometimes. Knowing when to be gentle and when to be brutal, when to let someone rest and when to force them to remember." Kate kissed his temple. "And Min-suk? I'd do it again. Every time. Because you're worth fighting for. Worth the risk." They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other across impossible odds. A Korean Mafia boss who'd lost his memory. A black waitress who'd said one name and changed everything. A sister's name that carried the weight of grief and love and transformation. Ji-won. That's what it had taken. One name. One truth. One woman brave enough to speak it and one man strong enough to hear it. 10 years later, Kate stood in the grand ballroom of the Cho Foundation headquarters, watching Min-suk accept an award for his work in deaf education and community development. He'd come so far from the crime boss who'd taken a bullet to the head. Now he was a legitimate businessman, philanthropist, community leader. Still powerful, still commanding, but using that power to build opportunities rather than control territory. Their children, 3 now, all learning ASL alongside their other languages, sat in the front row with Kate's grandmother, still going strong at 85, and Min-suk's mother, who'd long since forgiven her son for marrying outside Korean society and now bragged constantly about her beautiful grandchildren. "This work is personal to me," Min-suk said in his acceptance speech, signing as he spoke. "My sister Ji-won was deaf. She died 10 years ago, but her influence shapes everything I do. She taught me that disability is not deficiency, that communication takes many forms, that love and determination can overcome any barrier." His eyes found Kate in the audience, and everything else fell away. "But my wife taught me something even more important, that we are not trapped by our past or defined by our memories, that even when we lose ourselves, love can call us home, that speaking one true name can save a life." Kate's eyes filled with tears as Min-suk continued. 10 years ago, I lost my memory, forgot 3 years of my life, including the growth and change my sister's death had sparked in me. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone who solved problems with violence rather than strategy, who saw mercy as weakness, who'd forgotten why compassion matters. My wife brought me back, not by forcing me to remember, but by reminding me of the most important person in my life. She said my sister's name, Jiwon, and in doing so, gave me back not just my memories, but my purpose. She saved me from becoming someone my sister would have been ashamed of. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Minsuk's voice grew thick with emotion. So this award, for work supporting deaf education, for building inclusive communities, for using resources to uplift rather than control, this isn't mine. It belongs to two women, Jiwon, who taught me by example what strength and joy look like, and Catherine, who loved me enough to break me open so I could heal. He gestured for Kate to join him on stage. She hesitated, but their oldest daughter, 7 now, fierce and brilliant, pushed her forward. Kate climbed the stairs and Minsuk pulled her close, signing as he spoke. I have lived 2 lives, the one before Jiwon's name brought me back, and the one after. Both times I fell in love with this woman. Both times she saw past my power and position to the person underneath. And both times she chose me anyway. He turned to face Kate directly. You are the constant in every version of my story, the North Star when I'm lost, the truth when I'm lying to myself, the name that calls me home when I forget who I am. You're embarrassing me in front of very important people, Kate whispered, but she was smiling. Good. You deserve to be celebrated, to be seen, to have everyone know that whatever I've built, whatever I've become, it's because you believed in me. Even when I didn't remember why I should believe in myself. The audience erupted in applause. Kate buried her face in Minsuk's shoulder, overwhelmed by the public declaration. But he just held her, solid and certain, exactly as he'd been since the moment he'd remembered who she was and fallen for her all over again. That night, back in their home, a sprawling house in the hills with space for kids and visiting family and the occasional business meeting, Kate found Minsuk in his study, looking at old photos. Not business documents or strategy plans, just pictures of Jiwon. You okay? Kate asked softly, sliding her arms around him from behind. Just thinking about that night, when you came to me with these photos and told me I had a sister I'd forgotten. When you said her name and my entire world rearranged itself. Scariest thing I've ever done. Bravest thing anyone's ever done for me. He turned to face her. Catherine, do you know what the amnesia taught me? What losing 3 years showed me? What? That who we are isn't just what we remember. It's what we choose. I fell for you twice. Once with memories of our growing connection, once with none of that context, which means what I feel for you isn't dependent on shared history or accumulated moments. It's something deeper, something that exists beyond memory. Soul deep, Kate said softly. Exactly. You could take away every memory I have of you, and I'd still find you, still choose you, because loving you isn't something I remember. It's something I am. Kate kissed him, pouring a decade of love and struggle and triumph into it. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. Jiwon brought us together, you know. Her death changed you, made you someone who could see me, value me, love me. And then her name saved you when you'd lost yourself. She's the invisible thread connecting every part of our story. She'd love that, Minsuk said with a sad smile. Always wanted to be important, to matter, and she does. Every deaf kid who gets a scholarship from our foundation, every inclusive business we fund, every life we touch, that's her legacy, and ours. We did good, Kate said. Built something beautiful from grief and memory loss and impossible circumstances. Your sister would be proud. So would your grandmother. So would everyone who believed in us when we were just a crime lord and a waitress who had no business falling for each other. Kate laughed. We really had no business falling for each other. The universe must have been laughing its ass off watching us figure it out. The universe knew what it was doing, took my memory so I could learn to love you twice, took my sister so I could become someone capable of real love, took every easy option away until the only choice left was the impossible one, choosing you against all logic and sense. And you chose me anyway. Every time, without hesitation, memory or no memory, easy or hard, logical or insane, I choose you, Catherine, always. 15 years after the amnesia. The documentary crew filming for a series on Korean-American success stories asked Minsuk about the turning point in his life, the moment when he shifted from traditional organized crime toward legitimate business and philanthropy. My sister's death was the beginning, he said, Kate sitting beside him, their hands intertwined. But my amnesia was the crucible. Losing 3 years of memory could have destroyed me. Should have, really. But instead, it taught me something crucial about identity and choice. Can you elaborate? The interviewer asked. I became a better man over 3 years of processing grief, of trying to honor my sister's memory. Then a bullet took those years away, and I reverted to who I'd been. Harder, colder, more violent. I was planning actions that would have destroyed everything I'd built. He squeezed Kate's hand. My wife saved me. She knew the key to unlocking my memories wasn't recreating situations or showing me photos of myself. It was reminding me of the person I'd been trying to honor. So she spoke my dead sister's name, G1, and everything came flooding back. That must have been traumatic. It was devastating, remembering her death all over again, remembering 3 years of grief I'd forgotten. It broke me open, but it also made me whole, because I didn't just remember facts. I remembered why I changed, why mercy mattered, why building was better than destroying. The interviewer turned to Kate. That was an incredible risk. What made you confident it would work? Kate smiled. I wasn't confident. I was terrified it would break him permanently. But I knew who he really was, not the man the amnesia had created, but the man he'd become through grief and growth. And I knew his sister was the key. She'd changed him once by living and dying. She changed him again by being remembered. Do you think about that moment often, when you said her name? Every day. It was the scariest and most important thing I've ever done. But Minsuk needed to remember Jiwon, not just to regain his memories, but to remember his purpose, his reason for becoming better. Minsuk picked up the thread. Jiwon hated violence, hated what the family business required of me. She wanted me to use our resources to help people, not control them. After she died, I tried to honor that wish. When I forgot her, I forgot why it mattered. Catherine gave her back to me, and in doing so, saved dozens of lives. The people I would have killed in the Kim faction assault, the families who would have suffered in the war I almost started. So your sister's name saved more than just your memories? My sister's name saved my soul, Minsuk said simply, and my wife's courage in speaking it saved everyone I love. 20 years after the attack, Kate stood in the garden of Jiwon's table. The original restaurant had expanded into 3 locations, each named for Minsuk's sister, watching her oldest daughter teach sign language to a group of kindergartners. The Cho Foundation had grown exponentially, funding deaf education programs across the country, providing scholarships, creating opportunities. Minsuk found her there, silver threading through his hair now, lines around his eyes from decades of smiling. Nostalgic. Just thinking about how far we've come. 20 years since you lost your memory. 20 years since I said Jiwon's name and brought you back. Best decision you ever made. Scariest decision, Kate corrected. I had no idea if it would work. Could have just as easily destroyed you. But you took the risk anyway. That's love, Catherine. Not the easy moments, but the impossible choices. The decisions that require everything. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their daughter sign with bright-eyed enthusiasm, teaching the next generation a language that bridged worlds. Kate thought about that terrified 26-year-old waitress who'd fallen for her crime lord boss, who'd sat beside his hospital bed and confessed her feelings to an unconscious man who'd ultimately saved him by speaking one name. Do you ever regret it? She asked. The amnesia, the trauma, all the pain? Never. Minsuk's answer was immediate, because it taught me something I needed to know. That loving you isn't about memory or history or accumulated time. It's about recognition, soul-deep recognition. I fell for you with full awareness of our connection, then I fell for you again with none of that context, which proved that what we have transcends circumstance. That's very philosophical for a reformed crime boss. I've had 20 years to think about it. 20 years of being grateful that you were brave enough to say my sister's name, that you loved me enough to risk breaking me so I could be whole. Kate leaned into him, feeling the solidity of his presence, the warmth of his love. Jiwon would be proud, you know, of everything we built, every life we've touched, every kid who learned they could achieve anything despite, or because of, being deaf. She'd be proud of you especially. You're the one who saw potential instead of problems, who believed a crime lord could become a philanthropist, who knew that speaking one name could change everything. It was her name to speak. I just knew it was the key. Knew that remembering her would remind you of why you changed, why mercy mattered, why violence should be the last resort, not the first. You saved dozens of lives that night, Minsuk said quietly. The Kim faction members I would have killed. My own people who would have died in retaliation. The families torn apart by war. All saved because you were brave enough to speak one name. Ji-won, Kate whispered. Even now, after 20 years, the name carried weight. Grief and love and transformation, all wrapped up in 2 syllables. Ji-won, Minsuk echoed. My sister, my conscience, my reason for becoming better. He turned to Kate, eyes soft with decades of love. And you, my savior, my anchor, the woman who spoke that name and brought me home. Epilogue. 25 years later, Minsuk stood before Ji-won's memorial, a beautiful sculpture in the center of the Cho Foundation's main courtyard, depicting hands forming the ASL sign for love. Kate stood beside him, both of them older now, worn by time but strengthened by it too. A quarter century, Kate said softly, since you lost your memory, since I said her name, since everything changed. Best 25 years of my life. Minsuk pulled her close. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts because they taught us what we were made of. Their children, grown now, with families of their own, gathered around the memorial for the annual ceremony honoring Ji-won. The foundation had helped thousands of deaf students, funded countless programs, changed innumerable lives. All because one woman had been brave enough to speak one name to a man who'd forgotten why mercy mattered. I still think about that night, Kate admitted. Wonder what would have happened if I'd been too scared, if I'd let you stay in the amnesia. We'd have found each other anyway, Minsuk said with certainty. Maybe not as quickly, maybe not as completely. But Catherine, you and I, we're inevitable, written in stars or fate or whatever force governs the universe. Memory or no memory, I'd always find my way to you. Because of Ji-won. Because of Ji-won, he agreed. She changed me first by living, then by dying, then by being remembered. She's the thread connecting every part of our story, the invisible force that made me capable of loving you the way you deserve. Kate looked at the memorial, at her husband, at their gathered family. We built something beautiful from grief and trauma and impossible circumstances. Your sister would be so proud. She is proud. I feel her sometimes, in the quiet moments, smiling at what we've created, at the family we built, the lives we've touched, the world we've changed. Minsuk's voice was thick with emotion. And I know she's grateful to you for speaking her name when I'd forgotten, for giving her back to me, for making sure her death meant something. Kate took his hand, decades of love and trust and partnership flowing between them. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For forgetting, for making me brave enough to speak her name, for falling for me twice, for building this life with me. She gestured at their family, at the memorial, at the foundation that bore Ji-won's legacy, for proving that love can survive anything, even amnesia. Minsuk kissed her softly, gently, with all the tenderness of 25 years together. Cho Ji-won, he said when they parted, the name that saved my life, the sister who made me human, the memory that brought me home. Cho Ji-won, Kate echoed, and around them their family repeated it like a prayer, like a blessing, like the magic word it had always been. One name. That's all it had taken. One name spoken by a brave woman to a broken man. One name that carried enough love and grief and truth to shatter amnesia and restore a soul. One name that changed everything. Ji-won, sister, savior. The invisible architect of an impossible love story.